Tenet 7. The amount of time that change will occur and has occurred appears to be infinite. We have fooled ourselves into believing that time had a beginning and further that it will have some kind of end. We do this because it seems difficult or frightening for us to grasp the idea that time did not have a beginning and that the past, as we look back, is infinite. I will apologize in advance to those of you who do not like nor understand philosophy very well. I tend to think that everyone has the capacity to understand anything, as you will come to notice later. I am finding that I cannot explain this tenet without mentioning philosophical lessons, as I have tried to do with the rest of this book. So without further ado, I give you an infinite continuum of change, which we measure as time, and shows that change has no beginning and will never end. In order for a change to occur, another change must cause it. This is known as a causal chain. You may think about it like dominoes. In order for one domino to fall, another domino must collide with it, unless there is a kid at heart in the room who, in this example, would simply serve as a different kind of a domino. You are the child. You started those dominoes falling with your finger or some other mechanism. Something else started you before you knew what a domino was. Something else started that something else that started you, and so on. As each domino falls, its energy of motion goes into the floor and is distributed amongst the floorboards or tile or whatever, and into the next domino until the last. To be more realistic, which is what all of this is about, the universe has a set amount of energy. By energy, I mean anything that is a thing. And it is here that we specify that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Some of you will recognize this as the first law of thermodynamics. And within this law, more specifically, we find the law of conservation. For rational human understanding, this means that the energy that exists in this universe, as we have come to understand it, has always been here. Another way to understand this is by taking a rock and dividing it. Do not take into account the energy that you gave the rock when you cut it, nor the energy that the rock releases when it is broken. Let's say the rock has an energetic value of 10. Yes, we simply pull this number out of thin air. Its energy is found by using a different tenet. So the rock we will divide mentally. Now we have two rocks that possess an energetic value of 5 each. We take one of those rocks and divide it again, so we have two rocks with values of 2.5. We can do this forever until we have 100 million rocks with energetic values of 1/1,000,000th each. If you multiply these values, you arrive at one rock. All the energy is still there. We can smash all of those pieces to bits, and they will fly everywhere. But we can never cause any of that energy to become nothing. That is to say that something cannot become nothing. The same is true for the energy that exists in this universe. None of this energy can be destroyed, which indicates that it never was destroyed, and thus has always been in existence. And that indicates that the changes that the energy of the universe has undergone never had a beginning. The beginnings that we see are beginnings of patterns of energy, and are not beginnings of energy itself. For energy cannot be created. The current state and position of our universe is a pattern of energy. It is in a particular pattern or position right now that we think began as a big explosion. I tend to think that there have been many, many explosions as we look back upon an infinite past. This is another part of what I came to understand on that day of realization just 10 years ago. This is where humans in their minds tend to make up many different explanations. And if you are like most, your brain is working really hard right now to explain how all this energy got here. I must admit that I do not know how all the energy that exists came to exist. I can do little else but repeat myself and trust that it has always been here, and imagine that it always will be here, given what we know about energy. As I have tried to state above, all of this seems very obvious. This is where humans say that some other thing put all of it here and started its cycles of change, the infinite causal chain of events. Listen to what I wrote, some other thing. Anything that is a thing also exists, and thus there has never been no something. That is to say that there has never been nothing at all, for something cannot come from nothing. Prepare yourself for the following statements regarding something and nothing, which you may not understand, while I have worked my rear off to get a grip on. I present all of this for you. I have had this debate with philosophers and friends many times. Nothing. Anything that is a thing is something and not nothing. Nothing is the non-existence of something. Nothing is the absence of something. Something cannot come from nothing. Nothing cannot come from something. Something cannot be made into nothing. Nothing is where all somethings exist. We are somethings. We exist within nothing and amongst somethings. We move through nothing and somethings. There is something, and then there is nothing. The two are quite different. The space that an atom occupies is mostly nothing, with little tiny somethings whizzing around. There is some statistic out there that researchers are aware of, and I may become more aware of, that states that about 99%, questionable percentage, of an atom's space is nothing, and 1% is something, protons, electrons, and neutrons. We are made of atoms, which are mostly nothing. We also know that about 98 to 99% of what we are is in the form of water. This is where I get the idea that we are water and rock talking. Most people start this argument by asking, how can nothing exist? This is only a play on words. For those who do not wish to understand much of anything, nothing does not exist. Some things exist. As described above, nothing is the absence of something where all somethings exist. Astronomers, physicists, mathematicians, and philosophers love these types of discussions, and so do people who are drunk when they come around to this in their inebriated, intoxicated conversations. Something, nothing, nothing, something, blah, 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 blah. All the something in the universe is what I'm referring to as energy. And this is what the first law of thermodynamics suggests, which I think I will to repeat later. In accordance with this law, this energy has existed infinitely, forever. It has always been changing and has always changed at the same moment, now. As long as something continues to collide with other things, change will continue. That is to say that time had no beginning and will have no end. These are apparent truths about the infinite nature of the universe, time and space, which should help us better understand our position. We exist now. Before our existence, there was an infinite past. Afterward, there will be an infinite future, as it appears that the energy of the universe will never become nothing, nor become stagnant, as suggested by the second law of thermodynamics with regard to the subject of entropy. In the event that you are wiser than I may be giving you credit for, then you may have heard that it is slightly possible for all matter in the universe to become equidistant, that is, evenly spaced and completely still at absolute zero. The term for this is entropy, an aspect of the second law of thermodynamics, whereby everything exerts an equal amount of energy upon its surroundings and causes universal stillness. If this happens, then it will be a very long time from now, and we really need not concern ourselves with the reality of such things as we attempt to build a better belief system that is rock solid and grounded in things that we cannot deny. I will now mention the idea of apparent truth again and introduce the idea of tangibles. Tangibles are cute and undeniable, like the idea that we are made of atoms and various elements that you should have learned in school. Sometimes I forget that most people do not like school and that they forget everything soon after they leave the classroom, unless you do not. What is to be gained from this section after all of this? Time did not begin and will not end. Change is a constant in this universe that occurs now. If you can find another universe where change is not a constant and there are multiple nows where things happen simultaneously at different times, then please let me know so I may add its dimensions to this book or write a new one. Until then, you can rest assured that this life occurs exactly in the middle of infinity. Infinite change occurred before you and will occur after you. Life is a little tiny window in a causal chain of events that we call time. I hope this is humbling, but hope floats, something you may notice in the depths of the isms.